The ice sheets of Europa stretched endlessly beneath Commander Elena Rodriguez's research vessel, the Magellan. Through the reinforced viewport, the Jupiter's massive form loomed above, casting an ethereal glow across the moon's crystalline surface. After 6 months of drilling through the ice, they had finally reached the liquid ocean beneath, but what they found there defied all expectations. "Commander, you need to see this," Dr. James Chen called from the scanning station. His voice carried an unusual tremor that made Elena's spine tingle. She made her way across the bridge, her movements careful in the low gravity. The holographic display showed something impossible, a perfect geometric structure, stretching for kilometers beneath Europa's ocean. Its surfaces were carved with intricate patterns that pulsed with a faint blue luminescence, clearly artificial in origin. How did we miss this during the orbital surveys? Elena wondered aloud, studying the readings with growing amazement. "We didn't," James replied, pulling up comparison scans. "This structure, it wasn't here 3 days ago. It's like it just woke up." Before Elena could respond, the ship's AI interrupted with an urgent alert. Multiple unidentified objects detected entering the solar system at FTL speeds. Current trajectory suggests Earth as their destination. The bridge crew fell silent. Humanity had yet to achieve faster-than-light travel. Whatever was heading toward Earth, it wasn't human. The next 48 hours transformed human civilization forever. The vessels belonged to what called itself the Galactic Confederation, an alliance of spacefaring species that claimed authority over this sector of space. Their message was broadcast simultaneously to every communication device on Earth and its colonies. "People of Earth," the transmission began, the alien voice somehow perfectly translated into every human language. "Your recent activities have activated certain, restricted technologies. This violation cannot be permitted to continue." Elena watched the transmission from Europa, her fists clenched as the alien representative continued. The being appeared vaguely humanoid, but its skin shifted like liquid mercury, and its eyes held the depth of ancient stars. "Your species has been monitored since your earliest attempts at spaceflight," it continued. "We believed you to be harmless primitives, safely contained within your solar system. However, your discovery on Europa changes everything. You have inadvertently accessed technologies belonging to the precursors, technologies deemed too dangerous for young races to possess." Back on Earth, the United Earth Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from every nation gathered in Geneva, their faces grim as they discussed the Confederation's demands: immediate cessation of all deep space exploration and surrender of any discovered precursor artifacts. But even as politicians debated, something extraordinary was happening across the solar system. On Mars, ancient machinery stirred beneath the red sands. Within Venus's crushing atmosphere, long-dormant energy signatures flared to life. Beneath Earth's oceans, structures similar to the one on Europa began to emerge. Dr. Sarah Collins, Earth's leading xenorchaeologist, stood before the council with trembling hands but a steady voice. "The artifacts we're discovering, they're not alien technology at all. The writing systems, the architectural patterns, they're human in origin. What we're seeing is evidence that humanity once possessed technological capabilities far beyond our current level, perhaps millions of years ago." Her revelation was interrupted by a priority alert from Europa. Commander Rodriguez's voice filled the chamber, tight with controlled excitement. "Council members, the structure here, it's not just a building. It's responding to human presence. It's showing us something, coordinates scattered throughout our solar system. And there's a message, repeating in what appears to be Proto-Sanskrit, to our children. The lockbox opens when the storm comes." The Confederation's ultimatum arrived 12 hours later: surrender or face extinction. Their massive ships took position around Earth, weapons primed. But as humanity faced its darkest hour, the ancient mechanisms left behind by their forgotten ancestors began to stir. Deep beneath Europa's ice, Commander Rodriguez and her team worked frantically to understand the structure's interface. Dr. Chen's fingers flew across holographic controls that seemed to anticipate human touch. "Commander," he called out, his voice filled with wonder, "I think I know what this place is. It's not just a storage facility. It's a key." Elena stepped closer to the central chamber, where a massive hologram had sprung to life. It showed the solar system, but not as they knew it. Dozens of locations pulsed with energy signatures, forming a complex network of interconnected beacon. Our ancestors, Elena realized, they didn't just leave us technology. They left us a defense network. They knew someone would try to stop us from reclaiming our heritage. As if in response to her words, the structure's pulse quickened. Throughout the solar system, other sites began to respond in kind. Humanity stood at a crossroads: submit to alien dominion, or reach for the stars once again, guided by the legacy of their forgotten past. The choice would reshape the galaxy forever. The United Earth Council's secure bunker hummed with activity as holographic displays showed the awakening sites across the solar system. Admiral John Way stood before the assembled leaders, his weathered face illuminated by the streaming data from Europa. "The Confederation fleet has expanded to 36 capital ships," he reported, gesturing to the tactical display. "They've established a blockade beyond lunar orbit, but they haven't moved to strike. Yet." Dr. Sarah Collins stepped forward, her silver hair catching the blue light of the holograms. "Because they're afraid," she said, pulling up new data from sites around Earth. "Look at these energy signatures. Whatever our ancestors built, it's making the Confederation nervous." The chamber's main screen shifted to a live feed from the Mariana Trench. A massive structure had emerged from the ocean floor, its crystalline spires rising through the water like a cathedral of light. Similar reports were coming in from the Sahara, the Antarctic ice sheet, and the Amazon basin. "The sites are communicating with each other," Dr. Collins continued. "Each activation is triggering responses across the entire network. But we're missing something, a key sequence or command that would bring it all online." The Indian representative leaned forward. "The message from Europa mentioned a storm. Could that be related to the Confederation's arrival?" Before anyone could respond, the bunker's AI announced an incoming transmission. The liquid mercury face of the Confederation's high speaker filled the screens. "Your species continues to disappoint," it said, its voice carrying notes of both condescension and concern. "We offered you peace, protection. Instead, you raced toward your own destruction. The technologies you awakened were sealed away for a reason. The precursors nearly tore reality apart with their hubris." Admiral Zhang stepped forward. "These aren't precursor technologies. They're human technologies. Our birthright." The high speaker's form rippled with what might have been amusement. "Is that what you believe? How little you understand. Your species was barely walking upright when the precursors vanished. These sites are far older than your civilization." But Dr. Collins was already shaking her head, bringing up genetic data on a side screen. "You're wrong. We've analyzed DNA samples from the Europa site. The genetic markers in the security systems, they're human. Ancient, yes, but undeniably human. We were here before, weren't we? And you pushed us back to the Stone Age." The high speaker's form went still. "The past is irrelevant. You have 6 hours to surrender the activation sites and submit to Confederation authority. After that, we will have no choice but to sterilize this system." As the transmission cut off, alarms blared throughout the bunker. "Multiple launches detected from the Confederation fleet," the AI announced. "Kinetic kill vehicles on trajectory for all known activation sites." Admiral Zhang barked orders as the chamber erupted into chaos. "Launch our defensive satellites. Get our people out of those sites." But at the Europa facility, Commander Rodriguez made a different choice. Instead of evacuating, she and her team raced deeper into the structure. "Dr. Chen, status on that interface." James Chen's fingers danced across the holographic controls. "The network is reaching critical mass. Each Confederation action is feeding more energy into the system. "Commander, I think I understand what the storm message means. It's not about weather, it's about resistance." Elena smiled grimly. "Our ancestors knew the Confederation would come back. They built all this not just to fight them, but to use their own aggression against them." She placed her hand on the central console. "Send word to Earth. Tell them to stop trying to evacuate the sites. Tell them to push deeper." Across the solar system, humanity dug in. As Confederation weapons approached, the ancient sites began to pulse with increasing power. In the Sahara, archaeologists discovered vast chambers filled with what looked like sleeping ships. Beneath Antarctica, researchers found what appeared to be a massive energy weapon aimed at the stars. Dr. Collins stood in the council chamber, watching as data poured in from every site. "It's all connected," she breathed. "Every weapon they launch, every energy beam they fire, it's all feeding into the network. Our ancestors built a system that literally turns our enemies' strength against them." The bunker shook as the first Confederation weapons struck Earth's atmosphere. But instead of detonating, the kinetic kill vehicles seemed to dissolve, their energy absorbed by shimmering fields that had sprung up around each activation site. Admiral Zhang watched in amazement as the tactical display updated. The absorbed energy was being channeled, redirected through the network of sites. Beneath the surface of Mars, something massive was stirring. "Send word to all commands," he ordered. "Full activation protocols at every site. It's time to show the Confederation why they feared our ancestors." In orbit, the Confederation fleet prepared for their next assault. But in the depths of Europa, Commander Rodriguez and her team had finally understood the full scope of their inheritance. The structure wasn't just a defense platform or a weapons cache. It was a key, and the Confederation's attack had just turned it. Throughout the solar system, humanity's ancient legacy was awakening. The storm had come, and with it, the chance to reclaim their place among the stars. Mars burned red with more than rust as ancient hangars burst open across its surface. From the depths of Valles Marineris, massive shapes rose into the thin atmosphere, their hulls gleaming with patterns that matched those found on Europa. The Confederation fleet reacted immediately, redirecting their weapons toward the emerging threat. In the Europa Command Center, Commander Rodriguez watched the tactical display with fierce pride. "They're called the Aegis class," she said, reading from the newly decoded data streams. "Our ancestors built them as their frontline defenders." Dr. Chen looked up from his console, his eyes wide. "Commander, these ships, they're not just warships. They're seed ships, terraformers, and exploration vessels all in one. The weapons are almost an afterthought, because our ancestors built them to create, not destroy." Elena realized. Even their defensive systems were designed to preserve and transform rather than eliminate. The first engagement occurred near Deimos. A Confederation dreadnought fired its main weapon at one of the rising Aegis vessels. The beam of concentrated energy struck what should have been a killing blow. But instead of destruction, there was transformation. The ancient ship's hull absorbed the attack, its surface flowing like liquid metal, adapting and evolving. On Earth, Dr. Collins and her team worked frantically to process the flood of new information. "The technology isn't just advanced," she explained to the Council. "It's alive. It learns, adapts, and grows. Every attack makes it stronger." Admiral Zhang's voice came through the comm system, thick with emotion. "The Martian fleet is fully emerged. We're counting over 300 capital ships, all showing green across the board. They're asking for crews." The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. "Asking for crews?" The Russian representative demanded. "How? These ships are millions of years old." Dr. Collins pulled up the neural interface data they'd gathered. "The ship's AI systems are designed to bond with human operators. They've been waiting for us, waiting for the right moment." The Confederation's attack wasn't just a trigger for activation. It was the final test to prove we were ready. Across the solar system, humanity's response began. Trained pilots and crews were rushed to the activation sites, where ancient shuttles waited to transport them to the awakened fleet. The ship's interfaces were intuitive, responding to human thought and intention as if they'd been designed specifically for each crew member. Commander Rodriguez led the first wing of Aegis ships out of Mars orbit. As her consciousness merged with her vessel's systems, she felt a connection to something vast and ancient, the accumulated knowledge and experience of countless generations of human spacefaring civilization. "All ships, form up," she broadcasted, her voice steady despite the overwhelming sensation of connecting with the ancient technology. "We are the children of Earth, and we will not be denied our heritage." The Confederation's response was immediate and brutal. Their fleet launched a full barrage, thousands of energy weapons and kinetic projectiles streaking across space. But as each attack struck the Aegis ship's defenses, something extraordinary happened. The energy was not just absorbed. It was redirected, transformed, and used to power new systems that emerged from the ancient vessels. In the council chamber, Dr. Collins watched in amazement as data poured in from the engaged ships. The technology, it's not just defending, it's evolving. Each Confederation attack is teaching our ships new ways to adapt. It's like the entire fleet is a single learning organism. Admiral Zhang's tactical display showed the battle unfolding across the solar system. The Aegis fleet is moving to surround the Confederation forces. But these maneuvers, they're not just tactical formations. Look at the energy patterns they're creating. He was right. The ancient ships were moving in precise patterns, creating vast geometric shapes in space. With each completed formation, new energy signatures rippled through the solar system. More activation sites began to respond, not just on planets and moons, but in seemingly empty space. It's a key sequence, Dr. Chen realized, watching from Europa. The fleet movements are unlocking something even bigger. "Commander, these readings, whatever our ancestors left for us, we're only seeing the beginning." The Confederation's high speaker appeared on all channels, its liquid mercury form now showing clear signs of agitation. "You cannot comprehend the forces you are unleashing. The precursor technologies. They're not precursor technologies," Commander Rodriguez interrupted, her voice carrying the combined authority of her ship's ancient systems. "They're human technologies. And unlike you, they were built to create rather than control, to explore rather than dominate." As if in response to her words, the Aegis fleet's formation locked into its final position. Throughout the solar system, space itself seemed to shiver. In the void between Mars and Jupiter, massive structures began to phase into existence: shipyards, research stations, and what appeared to be gateways to distant stars. Humanity's legacy was not just awakening. It was transforming the entire solar system back into what it had once been, the heart of a civilization that had reached for the stars not with clenched fists, but with open hands. Deep within humanity's awakened fleet, something unprecedented was occurring. As more crews merged with their ancient vessels, a collective consciousness began to emerge, not one that overwhelmed individual minds, but one that connected them to their species' forgotten history. Commander Rodriguez stood on her ship's command deck, watching as memories that weren't her own flowed through her mind. "We weren't just advanced," she whispered, understanding flooding her consciousness. "We were guardians of life itself." The images showed her the truth. Humanity had once been tasked with preserving and nurturing developing civilizations across the galaxy. The Confederation hadn't pushed them back to the Stone Age out of fear of their weapons. They had feared humanity's fundamental philosophy of freedom and growth. "All ships, prepare for dimensional shift," she commanded, feeling the ancient knowledge guide her actions. The Aegis fleet moved in perfect synchronization, their formations creating patterns that seemed to bend the fabric of space itself. On Earth, Dr. Collins worked frantically to process the data streaming in from the activated sites. "The network isn't just a defense system," she reported to the Council. "It's a restoration protocol. Every site, every ship, they're all part of a massive project to rebuild what we once were." The Confederation fleet had regrouped, bringing in reinforcements from neighboring systems. Their ships now numbered in the thousands, forming a wall of seemingly impenetrable force between Earth and the outer system. High Speaker's voice echoed across all channels. Your species was deemed too dangerous to be allowed to evolve naturally. You would spread chaos throughout the galaxy, encouraging other races to reject proper guidance and control. We will not allow this to happen again. But humanity's awakened fleet was no longer fighting the conventional battle. As the Confederation ships opened fire, the Aegis vessels enacted maneuvers that defied known physics. Space folded around them, weapons fire passing through empty volumes where ships had been microseconds before. They're not just ships, Dr. Chen realized, monitoring the battle from Europa. They're reality engineers. Each vessel is capable of manipulating space-time on a local level. The knowledge flowing through the neural interfaces confirmed his theory. Humanity's ancient technology had evolved beyond the crude manipulation of matter and energy. They had learned to work with the fundamental forces of the universe itself. Admiral Zhang watched from his command center as new tactical options bloomed in his mind. All ships, initiate Protocol Sunrise, he ordered, the ancient knowledge guiding his strategy. The Aegis fleet responded instantly, their formations shifting into new configurations. The effect was immediate and stunning. Massive energy fields sprang up throughout the solar system, not blocking the Confederation's weapons but redirecting them, using their own power to fuel something far greater. The space between planets began to shimmer with auroral lights. "It's beautiful," Dr. Collins breathed, watching the data streams. "We're not just defending ourselves. We're rebuilding the solar system's ancient infrastructure. Every attack they launch adds more energy to the restoration process." In orbit around Jupiter, massive structures began to materialize. Not weapons platforms, but research stations, cultural archives, and ecological preserves. The ancient human civilization had not been built on military might, but on the advancement and preservation of knowledge and life. Commander Rodriguez felt tears in her eyes as more of the truth became clear. Our ancestors didn't leave us weapons to fight the Confederation, she transmitted to Earth. They left us the tools to show them why they were wrong about us. The Confederation fleet faltered as their sensors registered what was happening. Their weapons weren't destroying humanity's resurgence. They were powering its rebirth. Each attack was absorbed and transformed, converted into energy that restored another piece of humanity's ancient legacy. Deep within the Europa facility, Dr. Chen made a startling discovery. "Commander, these readings, the original collapse of our civilization, wasn't entirely forced upon us. The records suggest we chose to go dormant, to give younger species a chance to evolve without our influence. The Confederation wasn't supposed to interfere. They were supposed to be guardians, not conquerors." The revelation spread through the fleet's neural network, reaching every human crew member. Their ancestors had made the ultimate sacrifice, voluntarily stepping back from their role as galactic guardians to allow natural development. But they had left behind everything their descendants would need when the time came to rise again. As if responding to this understanding, new systems began activating throughout the fleet. The ship's surfaces rippled with patterns of light, forming messages in languages that hadn't been spoken in millions of years. The Confederation forces found their weapons growing steadily weaker, their energy being siphoned away to fuel humanity's restoration. "They can't stop what's happening," Dr. Collins reported, her voice filled with wonder. "Our ancestors built these systems to be unstoppable once activated, not through force, but through transformation. We're not fighting the Confederation. We're showing them what they could have been all along." In the void between worlds, humanity's ancient legacy continued to unfold, reaching toward a future that had been millions of years in the making. The solar system blazed with light as humanity's ancient legacy reached its full awakening. The space between planets had become a vast tapestry of interconnected energy fields, each pulsing with the combined power of both the restored human technology and the absorbed Confederation weapons fire. Commander Rodriguez stood at the heart of it all, Her consciousness merged not just with her ship but with the entire network. Through the neural interface, she could feel the presence of every crew member, every activated site, every restored facility. But more than that, she could sense something else awakening. A message, encoded in the very fabric of their ancestors' legacy. All stations, she broadcast, her voice carrying the weight of millions of years of human history. Prepare for final restoration sequence. The Aegis fleet moved into its ultimate configuration, forming a vast geometric pattern that spanned the entire inner solar system. As they took their positions, the ships began to pulse with a deep, resonant energy that seemed to vibrate through reality itself. In the council chamber on Earth, Dr. Collins watched in awe as new data cascaded across her screens. This isn't just about reclaiming our technology, she realized. It's about remembering who we truly are. The final piece of the puzzle revealed itself as the fleet's formation locked into place. From every ship, every station, every activated site, streams of light converged at a point in space just beyond Earth's orbit. There, something impossible began to take shape, a massive structure that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. The Nexus Archive, Dr. Chen breathed, reading from the decoded data streams. It's not just a library or a database, it's the complete record of human civilization. Our knowledge, our achievements, our understanding of the universe itself. The Confederation fleet had fallen silent, their weapons powerless against the transformation taking place before them. On their command channels, confusion and fear had given way to something else, recognition. High Speaker's form appeared once more, but now its liquid mercury surface showed signs of what might have been shame. We were wrong, it admitted, its voice carrying across all frequencies. We thought we were containing a threat. We didn't understand we were suppressing the galaxy's greatest teachers. Through the neural interface, humanity's true history became clear to everyone connected to the network. They had not been conquerors or destroyers, but nurturers and guardians. Their advanced technology had not been developed for war, but for creation, exploration, and preservation of life in all its forms. Our ancestors didn't just leave us their technology, Commander Rodriguez transmitted, understanding flowing through her. They left us their wisdom, their purpose, and now we have a choice to make. In orbit around every planet, ancient terraforming stations hum to life, not destroying the existing environments but enhancing them, creating spaces where multiple forms of life could thrive together. The weapons of war that had been launched against them were transformed into tools of creation. The Confederation sought to control evolution, to direct it according to their vision. Dr. Collins addressed the Council. Our ancestors understood that true growth comes from freedom, from allowing each species to find its own path while providing guidance and support when needed. Through the Nexus Archive, humanity received their ancestors' final message, not just information, but a profound understanding of their role in the cosmic order. They had been the ones who seeded life throughout the galaxy, who helped young civilizations take their first steps among the stars. The Confederation ships began powering down their weapons, their crews finally understanding the truth. Humanity had not been sealed away because they were dangerous, but because they had chosen to give other species the chance to grow on their own. The time for that self-imposed exile was over. Admiral Zhang stood on his flagship's bridge, watching as the transformed solar system pulsed with new life. We offer you a choice, he transmitted to the Confederation fleet. Not surrender, not submission, but partnership. The galaxy needs both guidance and freedom, wisdom and innovation. It needs all of us working together. The response came not just from High Speaker, but from every Confederation vessel. Their ships began to move, not in attack formation, but in patterns that mirrored the ancient human designs. They were remembering, learning, growing. Throughout the solar system, the last pieces of humanity's legacy fell into place. The ancient ships and stations had not just been waiting to be reactivated. They had been waiting to teach, to share, to help create a future where all species could reach their full potential. Commander Rodriguez felt tears in her eyes as she issued her final command to the fleet. The Aegis ships moved once more, but not to attack. Instead, they created a series of gateways, pathways to distant stars where other young civilizations were taking their first steps into space. "We are the children of Earth," she transmitted, her voice carrying to every corner of the solar system. Not its only children, but its first. And like our ancestors before us, we choose not to rule, but to nurture, not to control, but to teach, not to end possibility, but to help it grow. The galaxy would never be the same. But then, that had been the plan all along.